Afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Martha Simmons with another session of preaching and preachers via restream. I wanted to say y'all. No, we're doing restream now. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. Come on in. We're a couple of minutes late, but we are here. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. I see people coming in. This is an important topic today that you do not want to miss. Come on in. Come on in. Let me get that screen down a little bit. There we go. There we go. Come on in. I see people coming in. And when you come in, type in the name of another person who you know would be helped by this broadcast. We're talking about Black mental health today. This is of critical importance. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. Come on in. Come on in. Are coming in. All right. All right. Come on in. I see people coming in. Good morning to my people on the West Coast. Good afternoon to my people on the East Coast and elsewhere. All right, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. I see people coming in. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. The Lord's Prince, I see you. Yvonne Johnson, thank you for joining me. Come on in. And when you come in, like I said, type in the name of another person who you know will be helped by this important broadcast. Come on in. Come on in. All right. All right. I see some of my people coming in from the West Coast. Come on in. Come on in and join me for this significant broadcast. Come on. Even if you know people who say they can't watch it today, it's going to be up on my page for the next couple of weeks so they can watch it in their leisure, but it is important. Come on in. Come on in. All right. All right. All right. Type in the names of other people you know that they need this information. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. As always, I am praying for those who are sick, praying for those who are experiencing a season of bereavement, and we're continuing to pray for the situation in Gaza and for our country. Let me do a quick announcement. This Friday, the 17th at 8 p.m. You don't want to miss the Women of Color in Ministry broadcast on their Facebook page, the Women of Color in Ministry Facebook page, where they will be featuring women on the front line with amazing guests like Bishop Leah Daughtry, Dr. Lisa Jenkins, Natasha Robinson, Esquire of Legalese. You do not want to miss this broadcast along with Cassandra Henderson. You don't want to miss that broadcast at 8 p.m. on the Women of Color in Ministry page. All right. And also, I'll do a quick plug. Thank you to those of you who have purchased copies of the sermon illustration book that I did with Dr. Reginald Bell. That's been out for about a month now. Thank you. It has sold well. And it'll make a great gift as well. Let's get to the broadcast. Today we want to talk about mental health and Black folk, and I've got just the man to do it. Reverend Gregory C. Ellison II, PhD. Dr. Ellison received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Emory University, where he was inducted into the Emory College Hall of Fame, the first Black male bestowed with that honor. He continued his educational journey at Princeton Theological Seminary as a presidential scholar, where he received a Master of Divinity degree and a PhD in pastoral theology. 10 years after graduating from Princeton, he returned to Emory to join the faculty at Candler School of Theology. He is currently an associate professor of pastoral care and counseling. He was awarded the faculty per 2010-2011 school year. 3 years later, he received the Emory Williams Distinguished Teaching Award, Emory University's most prestigious faculty teaching honor. He is the author of Cut Dead but Still Alive, Caring for African American Young Men, and of Fearless Dialogues, a new movement for justice. He is the editor of Anchored in the Current, discovering Howard Thurman as educator, activist, guide, and prophet. He is an ordained Baptist minister, and he has served on the ministerial staffs of both Methodist and Presbyterian churches. He pays a great deal of attention and cherishes the most strong convictions that he holds toward family and his fraternity brothers, Kappa Alpha Psi, and his, yes. Okay, you did have to do that. I get it. Welcome, Dr. Ellison. Welcome.
Hey, Dr. Simmons, what a gift it is to be here and to join you from my closet. This is a very special place in my life. It's the only place in my entire house that I control. And so, I help pay the bills, but I don't have much control in this space. So I'm so
I understand that. That's because you're a smart person. You're a smart person. You know who should be controlling things. You're a smart person.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you and people. And when you come in, type in the name of another person who you know should be viewing this broadcast. And as I said, if they tell you, I can't watch it today, it's going to be up on my page for 2 weeks and they can watch it in their leisure. This is such a critically important subject. And we know that it's the holiday season is upon us. So it's even more important. And things are just tough for a whole lot of people in this country. And we know that that's having an impact, of course, on folks' mental health. So let's just get right to the questions. Dr. Ellison, when I use the term mental health, tell me what that means to you.
Yeah. So Dr. Simmons, when I think about mental health, I think many people relegate mental health to what's happening in your mind. I think that's a misnomer. And I think it's something
That's
that
right.
we need to think more critically about. We are whole beings. We are much more than what we think. And there is, I teach pastoral care and counseling at Emory University's Candler School of Theology. And on the first day of class, we talk about how we are whole beings and such that if our physical, and our social health or wholeness is compromised, it affects our mental health. Likewise, we can be spiritually attuned, but we can be relationally disconnected. And all of those things affect how we have a sense of vitality in our lives. So I'd like to give a couple of brief definitions around a wholeness, right? And I'd encourage us to think about, instead of solely thinking about what's happening in the mind, to think about how are we whole people. And so I'm referring to this gentleman. His name is Philip Culbertson, and he has a book called Caring for God's People. And in this book, he says there are 6 component parts of what it means to be whole. And of course, these are impacted by gender and culture and life experience. But these 6 component parts are the mental,
Mhm.
the spiritual, the social, the physical, the emotional, and what he calls the volitional, the ability to make changes in one's life. But because we are
Mhm.
people of the
Right.
diaspora, Dr. Simmons, I believe it's also important to add a 7th part that Culbertson did not add, and that is
Mhm.
the cultural and the historical,
Mhm.
because we are people
Right.
who really build our sense of identity around our history, as
That's
well
right.
as how we are seeking to fulfill a narrative to create a better future for those who are not yet born. So, what Culbertson is saying is that if any of these elements are compromised, it
Mhm.
affects the totality of our being. And so, because you help us to focus on how to be better communicators of God's word, I want to focus on 2 of those elements, the
Mhm.
mental and the spiritual. And so what Culbertson says is that mental health is the ability, or mental wholeness is the ability to have a mind that is open to change,
All right.
one that
Mhm.
considers new ideas, one
Mhm.
that is open to creativity and active memory and vision. It holds both balance and balance both joy and sorrow. And
Yeah.
so that is really central to what mental wholeness looks like. But let's talk about 2 more. The second is spiritual wholeness.
Mhm.
And for Culbertson, spiritual wholeness extends beyond just ritualization of systematic faith or
Yes.
institutionalized
Yes.
belief.
Mhm.
Spiritual wholeness for Culbertson requires repeated awakening
Hmm.
and deliberate nurturing of the spirit within us. I'll
All
add
right
one
now.
more, and that's the physical. And I want to talk about these 3, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. According to Culbertson, physical um, wholeness is an equilibrium between activity,
Mhm.
intimacy, and rest.
Okay. Say
Activity,
that again. Say that
activity,
again.
activity, intimacy, and rest. And
Yes.
this is why it's so important, because I know I got some friends that are logged on who are preachers. Activity,
Mhm.
intimacy,
Mhm.
and rest. We're talking about mental health, right? But mental health is
Yeah.
a part of being a whole person. Activity,
Yeah.
intimacy, and rest. So this is what happens, and we talk about this in class. There are many caregivers who are in all kinds of ministry, and we are so plugged in to being spiritually attuned, right? We're
Mhm.
living out our call that God has
Yeah.
uniquely patterned for our lives. And so we get wrapped into the activity of teaching Bible studies. We get wrapped into the activity of going to visit people who are sick. We get wrapped into the activity of preaching sermons, right?
Mhm.
But we get so wrapped into the activity that we do not rest.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
And when that lack of rest catches up with us, it affects our mental ability to be creative, to engage new ideas, because we're so worn down.
That's right.
And this is where it gets
Mhm.
dangerous.
Whoa.
Activity, intimacy, and rest. When you are working too hard, when you are not
Mhm.
resting, and when
Mhm.
your intimacy is compromised, your boundaries get weak.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Mm. Mm.
And you may start saying things that you shouldn't say
Mm.
and doing things that you shouldn't do and
Yeah.
drinking a little more or
Yep.
sexing a little more
Yeah.
or shopping a little more, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these elements contribute to our mental health.
That's right. Mm.
So we have to be attuned to what's happening to our bodies. We have to be
Yes.
attuned to how we are connecting with the story of our ancestors. We have to be attuned to how we're continually being spiritually vitalized, or else our mental health is jeopardized. That was
Mm.
a long response. I'm
No,
sorry about
that was the response we needed. That's why
yeah.
you here. That was the response we needed. Give us the title of Culbertson's book.
Culbertson's book is called Caring for God's People. Philip Culbertson is his name. It looks like a textbook, but every now and then he'll break out and say something poetic and say, "Oh, the
Hmm.
Spirit fell on that dude."
You've been doing this for a minute, to say the least.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you seeing more? And given that, you gave us the full answer, the thick answer that we needed, are you seeing more mental health challenges among the general public? Or are we just naming them more now rather than ignoring them? What's your sense of, in terms of the work you do?
Well, I think we all had to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
but in that process, we also had to maneuver through the racial trauma and the
Yes.
political divisiveness of the past few years. And what I'm noticing in my classroom um, is that there is heightened anxiety,
Yeah.
particularly among younger students
Mm-hmm.
who feel a sense of burden of connecting socially with others. But there's
Yeah.
also, Miss Yvonne just wrote it. This sense of a latent racism that never
Yes.
escapes is always present. It's always beneath the surface. How am I going to
Always.
navigate in such a way
Yep.
that I can keep my body and my mind safe in any environment, whether it's the grocery store, whether
Yep.
it's a classroom? And so these elements are always beneath the surface. Therefore, right, recognizing that anxiety is possible, depression can be just one stroke away, right?
Yeah.
It is vital for us to care for our whole self. I go back to what we're saying,
Yes. Yes.
right? It's vital for us to exercise the physical
Yes.
activity, intimacy, and rest, right? And yeah, I drop another book for us that came out in the past 3 years that is so vital, particularly for Black and Brown folk, is Trisha
Mm-hmm.
Hersey's book, Rest is Revolution.
Rest is yes. Yes.
Rest is
Yes.
revolution. It is
Rest is revolution.
revolutionary for
Yes.
us to care for our bodies in light of
Yes.
a society that is threatening to take them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so, I remember Trisha, she's a dear friend of mine. She opens the book by saying she would remember her grandmother sitting in the big chair, right?
Right.
And
Right.
grandma every afternoon, and my grandma did the same thing. She'd just sit there and she'd be like, "Oh, I'm resting my eyes." And you think she'd be
That's
asleep.
right.
You think grandma be asleep, right?
She ain't sleep.
And grandma would say, "Every shut eye ain't sleep." you know, and
That's
what
right.
grandma was teaching us is how to restore our mind,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
how to restore
That's
our
right.
body, to hit a hard reset in the middle of the day just by closing your eyes. Grandma didn't know about mindfulness meditation, but grandma was
Hmm.
grounding herself,
That's right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
in a historical narrative where Black folk have been commodities,
My
where we
goodness.
work to make other people money, right?
Yep.
Where we bear the burdens of others. There is a revolutionary act to reclaim our mental our physical, our social space to take a deep breath and to move at a different pace. I'm just
Different.
praying for the day when I could sit down like my grandma and just shut my eyes in the middle of a crazy society. And so, to your question, I know
Yeah.
I'm circling all around, Dr. Simmons.
No,
Yes,
you did. You hit
there,
it just what we needed.
there are
Yeah.
there are increasing numbers of, and I apologize, I don't have this data front of mind, but I would
Mm-hmm.
say anecdotally, I'm hearing from more and more young people who are
Yeah.
struggling
They're struggling.
with anxieties, with depression, with
Right.
grief. The
Yes.
one thing that I am challenged by is we still have within our community a stigma around counseling.
Yes. Yes.
That it's not crazy people that go seek support.
My
Um,
goodness.
just just last week, in my class at Emory, I brought to class a therapist. His name is Bernard Kynes. I hold him in highest regard, and Brother
Mm-hmm.
Kynes helped to dispel for them the myth that a therapist is an old white guy who sits on the couch and says, "Say more," who just whispers to you, "Could you
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
more about that?"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's this 6'2", very healthy, strong black male who's sitting in our class, just exploding these myths, and inviting these students into a place of really cultivating their inner life. And then after he spoke, I shared with the students Bernard Kynes, who I call Brother Rabbi, because
Mm-hmm.
he is my teacher, has
Mm-hmm.
been my therapist for 14 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
every other week, I go and sit with Brother Rabbi because I'm
Yeah.
holding the stories of so many people.
My God.
And if you hold the stories of other people and you don't allow those stories to process out of you, the
Mm.
trauma,
Yes, Lord.
the toxins of those stories will
Yeah.
seep into your inner world and
That's right.
compromise your wholeness.
My goodness. Did,
And
did
so
you
you
all hear
got to get
that?
it out of you.
You gotta process it. You gotta process it. I don't know how. I was talking to a pastor not too long ago, and he was talking about how many people he had buried recently. I think it was like 6 in a row. Okay. You've got to have someone
You
who
got it.
helps you process that much. You got to. You just got to. And then after
Because
COVID, it was really,
and we
yeah, a need
we
for
we
processing.
are we 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 are people who feel,
Yeah.
right? And it says something when you are like when I was working in the prisons,
Mm-hmm.
I found that I was counseling the people who worked in the prison just as much as I was counseling those who were encaged,
Lord have mercy.
because they have to deal with the trauma of being locked behind those walls every day
That's right.
and seeing what they see and
Mm-hmm.
hearing what they hear. They're holding stories. And
Right.
we are holding the stories of people who are mentally incarcerated
Yes.
and they
Yeah.
don't know how to get help. And so, how are we
Right.
going to help them if we are always overburdened? I go right back to it: activity, intimacy, and rest.
Mm-hmm. And rest. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And preachers, preachers and all persons who do ministry, you all need to hear what Dr. Ellison is telling you. You cannot just give and give and give to other folk, okay, in the name of the work that you deem so important and never process it.
Mhm.
Never process it. I mean, in the last decade, I had never seen so many young preachers.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is, you talked about stuff that'll seep in, just drinking to excess. And I'm talking folk under 40, right? Just drinking to excess. And, they'll say, I'll smoke a little weed or I'll smoke a blunt. And it keeps building because, largely because, I'm going to say totally because, but largely because there's no processing.
Yeah. Well, and so here's another alternative, right? Because I saw my boy Teray just jump on, right? What does it mean?
Hey, Teray.
Yeah, that's my dude. And so what does it mean? Because some of us don't have access to therapeutic intervention.
Oh, my
But
goodness. Talk about
what
it.
does it mean, right? For us
Talk
still
about
to
it.
find spaces of healthy support, right? And so
Talk
if
about
you
it.
can't make it to your therapist, I got what I call a board of a kitchen cabinet board of directors, right?
Yes,
So
Lord.
if I can't make it to Brother
I got
Rabbi,
one too. Yes.
I got 3 or 4 people that I can call,
Hmm.
right? Some of them are much older
That's
than me,
right.
20, 30, 40 years older than
Yep.
me, right? And some of them are younger. I
Yep.
have folks that I just call and say, I need you to pray with me. What does it mean for us to
Hmm.
build communities of support around our ministry, right?
That's right.
That we
Hmm.
have a few people who will hold our confidence and not share all of our stuff because it's
Yeah.
too much of a load
It's too much.
for one person to carry. And I don't believe that God has called us to do that.
No, it's too heavy a yoke. It's
We are
too
not
heavy a yoke.
we are not the altar, Dr. Simmons.
See what I'm saying?
They're not supposed to lay it on us. We're
Thank you.
supposed to lay it on the altar. And we are not the
Yes.
altar.
Oh my God. Say that. Say that. Say that. Yeah. Yeah. So, I know, even anecdotally, you're talking about what you are seeing in your experience, whether, you've got numbers or not. Are there maybe a top 3 mental health challenges that you are seeing among Black children, meaning persons under 18? And then what are you seeing as major challenges for adults?
Yeah. Um, so I have to be transparent because our people are on.
Yep.
So I was trained in counseling.
Hmm.
I have not um, been in a therapeutic relationship with another person where I am actually their
Right.
therapist in
Right.
many years.
Gotcha.
I see the
Hmm.
kind of care that I work with as more communal. I help people to
Right.
process really hard challenges that are before them. So I'm going to answer this
Hmm.
question much more broadly, right, as opposed to
Okay.
something that the DSM-5 that would be much more diagnostic. I'm not going to answer in terms of
Right.
oh,
Right. No, I want it from your vantage point.
suicidal ideation is I won't go there, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. Gotcha.
one of the great challenges that has actually been the focus of my research as well as the bedrock of my ministry um, initially began in looking and working with young Black men. And I recognize that it is a
Hmm.
global challenge. And that is
Yes.
there are people all around us who
Mhm.
feel unseen and unheard.
My gosh.
And what does it mean to be in a perpetual state of feeling invisible and muted?
Hmm.
And how does that lack of acknowledgement impact how we view our own selves in the mirror? How does that lack of being meaningfully acknowledged impact
Yes.
how we relate to the people around us? How does it impact how we view our current status and the future that is before us? And so a lot of the work that I've been doing, both in the classroom and in our work with Fearless Dialogues, I see my boy Jonathan Wilkins, who's a part of our team, is on, is helping people to attune their senses such that they can see those among us who are screaming from the shadows and hear those who are whispering in
Yes.
the dark. There are people all around us who feel like if I die tomorrow,
My
nobody will
God.
care.
Oh my
If
God.
I don't show up on that Zoom screen for that work call,
Lord have mercy.
nobody will call to check and see, am I all right?
Mm.
If I don't make it to church 3 weeks in a row, will anybody
Mm.
notice? And
Mm.
so there are people that are clamoring for an opportunity to be recognized beyond a
Yep.
transactional way. I am more
Oh my
than
goodness.
what you say I am on my business card. I am more than the grades that I make in school. I am more than how much I put into the offering plate. But do you see me as one who is
Right.
made fully in the image of God? And so what we're seeking to do is to help people to see those who are just hidden in plain sight right in front of our eyes. And I think that is an epidemic that is among us.
That's right.
There are young people who are hyper visible and invisible at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
I see your butt because you sagging your pants, but I
Right.
don't see the possibility in your
That's
life.
right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
How do we learn to see the elderly, right? That are among us.
Right.
Just because you're in a senior citizen home, it doesn't mean that you don't have vital ideas that can help build our community. How can we see them and access the gifts
That's
that
right.
are within their heart that God gave them? My grandma used to say, "Man, I'm on the road today, Dr. Simmons. I must have got some sleep this weekend." My grandma used to say, um, she said, "Baby," um, and she was around 93 when she used to do this. She started doing this. She say, I call her in the morning and say, "Grandma, how you doing?" And she said, "Well, baby, God didn't see fit for me to die last night, so I guess I got more work to do."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does it mean to be 93 and still living out your vocation? But how many
Mm-hmm.
people do we throw away once they retire?
My goodness.
That's a mental health
My
crisis
goodness.
too. I mean, like if I don't feel like
Major.
I'm worth
Major.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'm lonely. Nobody sees me. Nobody checks on me, and nobody thinks I have anything to offer to the world. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot to
Whole,
contend with.
whole lot.
That's a lot. That's some major stuff. Whether you see it among young people or senior citizens, that's a lot.
Yes,
That's a
indeed.
lot to contend with, and you always on a roll. Today is not special, y'all. He's always on a roll. He's always on a roll. Um, Talk about fearless dialogues. You've been doing fearless dialogues, I think, since what, 2012 or 13.
Oh, you on
Tell me
top of
about
it,
that.
Doc. Yeah, this is our 10-year anniversary. And
All right,
thank
all
you for
right.
thank you for calling that out. Yeah, Fearless Dialogues, what we do is we create, and I say we because it's a team of us. So now
Mm-hmm,
it's about 17 members on our team.
mm-hmm,
And what we seek to do is to create these unique spaces using music, art, and these theory-based modules we call experiments for unlikely partners to have heartfelt conversations about taboo subjects. And so over the past 10 years, we've been invited by everybody from the Council of Bishops in the United Methodist Church to lead retreats for the bishops, to the top 200 leaders in the Presbyterian Church, to working with folks at Amazon and Shell Oil Company and the NBA, to schools and churches. And so what we do is we have several different curricula. Our main curriculum is really teaching people how to have conversations. What we found is that there are 5 fears that really complicate hard conversations, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're with your family members, whether you're in a church meeting. There are 5 fears, and I'll talk about these very briefly, Doc.
Yeah.
The first is the fear of the unknown. I am not certain what lies ahead, right? I don't know what will happen once I walk into this room. And what happens when we fear the unknown is we tense our bodies, right? We tense our jaws and we don't say everything that we think because we're not certain what will happen before. So we offer strategies to help people to navigate through the fear of the unknown. The second is the fear of strangers.
Whoa.
And in our world that is so divided around politics, right, where people who we thought were our neighbors actually become strangers when they open their mouths. We have to figure out ways how, Thurman says, how can we be in fellowship?
How? Yes.
With people who are different from us. So we offer strategies to deal with the complexities of the public stranger and the familiar stranger. And if we're really honest with ourselves, there is a stranger within us that we don't even want to acknowledge.
Oh my goodness. Talk about it.
The third is the fear of plopping. And that's a weird word. So Doc, let me ask you, when you hear the word plop, P-L-O-P, what do you hear? Plop.
Plop is something that goes down suddenly to land.
Something that just plop hits the ground, right?
Right. It lands suddenly.
And so when the fear of plopping is something that a lot of Black folk have to deal with in white spaces. Plopping is when you share your most authentic truth, when you've done your research, when you've thought about it a long time, when you prayed about it, and you get into a space and share it, and it just plop and hits the ground.
Whoa.
And nobody says anything. They change the subject like you didn't say a single word. And plopping is a violent act. And then finally, the fear of appearing ignorant and the fear of oppressive systems. And so we talk about these 5 fears, and we give.
What was the last one again?
The fear of oppressive systems.
Yes.
That these problems are too big. Racism, sexism, homophobia, Gaza is too big for little old me to do anything. So I don't do anything. I just fall back. So at Fearless Dialogues, we help people to have hard conversations and navigate these fears. And so it's been very fulfilling work.
Yeah, it's impressive work. It's impressive and needed work. So I definitely wanted to call that out because we need more fearless dialogues. And I'm just glad that you and your team are helping people to have those dialogues. And I want to recommend to folk who are listening to this broadcast, if you have situations, especially community-wide situations, and there's some things that are just too big for people to figure out how to talk about, these are the people to call to help you do that. These are the people to call. Go ahead.
Can I add something? I'm looking in
Sure.
this chat, Doc, and Brian Jones brings up a really good point. He says the therapists who are trained and licensed therapists and also seminary grads are not respected in many faith communities. And so
Whoa, yeah,
I,
true.
I want to address what Brian is saying and invite those pastors who are on the the call and who will watch this podcast to expand their imagination of how you might utilize
Mhm.
therapists in your community. And so
All right.
years ago, Brian, I was the associate pastor at a large church in the Midwest, and the pastor really gave me a lot of freedom to explore how we could support young people in our congregation. And
Mm-hmm.
so one thing that I did was I brought in um, two therapists who were local to our area, and
Mm-hmm.
what we did was we started this Bible study around communication. We called it Getting Grown. And so the way it was structured is we would have dinner, right? And this is a potluck dinner. This black folks, so some grandmamas in the kitchen cooking, right? We have a big dinner,
Yeah.
and after the dinner, I would take the parents with me, and the parents and I would have a Bible study around how best to communicate to your children and your spouses or your significant others.
Mm-hmm.
And after about 30 minutes, after that Bible study, while the students, but during that 30 minutes, the students were meeting with the therapist and talking with the therapist about communication
Mm-hmm.
strategies of how they could negotiate challenges at school and with their parents. And then after those 30 minutes that I was with the parents would then go and talk to the therapist. And the young people
Whoa,
would
yes.
come to me and we would do the Bible study. And so it became a way, and
Mm-hmm.
then we would have dessert together. It became a way for us to sneak therapy in through the back door, right? Because these were
Yes.
trusted black folk who were therapists but could speak our language. And so I invite you to think
Mm-hmm.
about some ways to welcome in people who are skillfully trained to navigate the inner dynamics that are happening in Black families, Black communities, and Black schools to support the wholeness of our people. Thank you, Brian. You there, Doc? Hello?
Okay.
Are you there? Did we freeze up?
All right. I know they're back. Yeah, go right
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am.
Yeah, but if that's
So
okay.
did I don't know where you cut off or where I cut off. Hello?
You would have the need to support to people.
So did we talk about, did you hear the part about the how the Bible study was structured?
You heard that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So overall point that you were making is that we need to support the individuals who are trained and doing this work.
Yes. 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 I'm sorry for my crazy connection. Here I am in my closet. Uh we got to work on that.
That and now it's fine. It's fine. It is fine. It's all been so wonderful so far. Um, and let me just ask you because you were talking about the need to support clergy who are also trained to mental health care, at various levels. At various levels, you do it in the classroom. There are people who they're diagnostic people, they're clinical care providers, all of those levels. So your clergy, from where you sit, what are you seeing? What does the terrain look like? The mental health terrain really look like for African American clergy? Are we worn out? Are we needing to rest more? Or tell me a bit. I mean, you spoke a little bit about it earlier, but just are clergy really burning out? Tell me a little bit what you're seeing, your experiences.
Well, I am hopeful, right?
Okay.
And the reason that I am hopeful is from my vantage point as a theological educator, there are many, many students who are interested in going into chaplaincy, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
um, and a good number of them are students of color, right? And so in our institution, we're building out our chaplaincy programming. So students who may not be as intrigued about going into parish ministry
Mhm.
are seeking vocations that will allow them to serve those who are in prisons, those who are on college campuses, those who are in hospitals who are in need of care. And so that's a point of hope for me
Mhm.
in terms of what I'm seeing with clergy. I'm also hopeful because I and maybe this is just from the space and time in my generation.
Mhm.
I'm seeing I'm seeing folks that are really trying to find community. And I
Yes.
think the pandemic was so disconcerting and disconnecting. I think there were a lot
Mhm.
of pastors who entered the pandemic burned out.
Yes. Yes.
And then, you're forced to reevaluate how you do ministry, right? And launch everything online, which was equally taxing. And then you add
Right.
up the sickness and the death and the racial trauma. And so I think people really limped out of the pandemic
Mm.
uh, season, knowing that COVID is still here.
Right.
And I think as a result, what happened is there are a number of people who are recognizing that I can't be by myself on this. And so
Yeah.
whenever I am returning to spaces,
Mhm.
I feel like it's a family reunion. And I'm connecting with people who, oh, Kirby Spivey, like Kirby Spivey, who who I had not seen in years, and we're finding ways to support each other on the journey because we know how isolating that has been.
Yeah.
Um, Eustacia Moffat, Reverend Dr. Eustacia, had a
Mhm.
question I think that relates to this. She was asking about what does it mean for us to connect with the stranger within.
Mm.
And
Yes.
um, to be honest, what has made my life most um, what has energized my life most over the past 5 years has been sitting with the life and wisdom of Howard Washington Thurman.
Mm.
And Dr. Thurman invites us into um, reckoning with those parts of our inner life that we would otherwise seek to neglect, that we may be too fearful to engage, but
Yes.
are absolutely necessary
Yes.
for us to grow into the people that God has uniquely called us to be. And so, Dr. Simmons, if it's okay for my friends, because now I got my family on, all these people that I wasn't
Go right
anticipating.
ahead. Go right ahead.
Um, could I offer some encouragement by bringing our ancestor, Brother Thurman, into the conversation.
Please do.
And to your question, Eustacia, I invite you to hear this devotion from Thurman. Thurman says in his reflection on the inward sea, it's my favorite of all of his devotions. He says, in every person there is an inward sea.
Yeah.
And in that sea there is an island. And on that island there is an altar.
Yes.
And standing guard before that altar is an angel with a flaming sword.
My goodness. Yes.
And nothing can get by that angel to be placed upon your altar on your island in the middle of your inward sea. Unless it has the fluid area of your consent.
My goodness.
So what is
underlying fluid?
What is Thurman saying here?
Yes.
He's saying that each of us has an inner world.
Yes.
That is rife with turbulence and possibility. And in our inner life, there is this altar. And on this altar is that unique gift that God placed within you. And if you never access it,
yes,
because you are the only you that will ever be born.
That's correct.
The whole world will miss this unique gift that God has given you, and God has placed it on your altar. But it's not just unprotected.
Right.
That altar is surrounded by this angel. And in my mind, what Thurman is saying is that this angel represents our ancestors. It represents those people who stood with you when times were most disconcerting. Those people who had your back when you didn't even know you needed somebody to stand with you. Those angels are protecting that unique gift, that which is in you. And those people are surrounding the island of your heart.
Yeah.
And so what is so sacred about this island is that everybody don't need to get there. Everybody don't need access to the sacred space of your heart. Everybody needs to feel the gift that God has given you, but everybody don't need to be in your inner world.
That's right.
And there's one of my favorite books is by this guy named Billy Chapata, Chapata. And he has this book called Chameleon Aura, Aura, Chameleon Aura. And what Chapata says is, if you are going to come into my sacred space, you need to take off your shoes because you are on holy ground.
Holy ground. Yes.
So everybody don't need to be on your island.
That's right.
Right? And this is where it becomes complicated. Thurman says that everybody has an inward sea.
Right.
Everybody has an island. Everybody has an angel.
Right.
And everybody has an altar with a gift on it. But how many people never access, Eustacia, the gift that is on their altar?
Yeah.
Because they're too scared to face the inward sea.
Too scared.
How many people, because of the status quo, or this is what we've always been told, or because of the voices that said, you can't do this, you're going to be just like your mama, or you can't do that because you're not educated enough, you do not leave the shore to fully access the gift that is out there in the depths of your inward sea.
Yeah.
And so your inner stranger, I think, is the captain of your ship that will take you to your altar. And we must meet the stranger within us.
Absolutely.
And that's not easy. And at times it
Yeah.
takes therapeutic intervention to meet the stranger,
Right.
to reckon
Right.
with our grief, to reckon with our rage, to reckon with our sadness, to reckon with our anxiety and our doubts. And if we cannot overcome the inner stranger,
Yeah.
right, that is really our guide, right? What does it
Yeah.
mean if rage is really a friend of ours?
Yes.
You've been
Yes.
told your whole life, you don't talk about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so I, I don't know, Doc. I mean, I think
No, I think you dead on it.
we
You and we know Thurman was dead on it.
we
You dead on it.
we must make this long journey from head to heart,
Yeah.
and that involves reckoning with the stranger within us that we may call doubt, that we may call rage, that we may call
Yeah.
anger, and it will require the support of angels, some who are ancestral, some who are licensed therapists, some who are
Right.
pastoral caregivers, some who are
Yeah.
chaplains, people who God has uniquely gifted to support
Right.
us on our journey.
Yeah. Bless you for that. That was so helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
So helpful as we talk about mental health and Black folk today. Dr. Ellison, this has been so rich. It's just been so rich. And for everyone who joined in today, make sure you type in the name of another person who you know will be helped by today's broadcast. Okay. And again, I want to invite you to join the Women of Color in Ministry this Friday at 8 o'clock on their page as they talk to sisters who are on the front line of doing so much important justice and legal work. 8 o'clock on the Women of Color in Ministry Facebook page. Thank you, as always, for supporting me as an independent scholar. You all know that. Love my work 123. Thank you for that. And last but not least, as I always say, share the video. It won't cost you anything. Share the video. This video is going to help some people. It's going to help some people. Share the video. God bless. I hope that you all have a great week. And Dr. Ellison, I've been trying to get, I want y'all to know, I've been trying to get him on here for a while. Thank you so much for taking time, in the midst of your just ridiculously busy schedule to hang out with me today. I really appreciate it.
Can I just say one last word, Doc? We want to affirm you, right? Because you have been a bridge for so many of us, to connect us to people who we didn't even know we needed to be connected with. And I thank you for being that bridge figure. And my granddaddy used to always say, "We sit under shade trees we did not plant." And thank you for planting trees for those who are not yet born. We give thanks for you.